Hello and welcome everybody to Extraordinary Experiences, or welcome back to the show. I'm Brad.
And I'm Casey.
And you're Casey.
We're really excited to be here today. We love doing this show because in our experience of being practitioners in this business of spirituality and consciousness, we have the blessed opportunities to meet the most extraordinary people with their gifts and their contributions to everything out there. And today's guest, Susan Walter, is no exception to that rule, certainly. She is a phenomenally gifted light being practitioner, and she brings forth such a state of tangibility to a phenomenon that everybody has heard of, which is that our guides and our spirits and our angels are around us, right?
She's brought it back.
I love this.
Yeah, she's brought it back with her.
As human beings, we configure and need in our logical mind some kind of proof or tangibility of things, until we don't, of course, until we get into this ethereal path and we trust everything that we feel and we know. But in that transition, there are people who can provide for us this cool, super cool tangibility of all this stuff. I just love this. Susan, of course, is going to be talking to us about her gift and where her gift came from, which is always another spectacular story. Thank you, Susan, so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Your story begins with, I think, an event, probably multiple events, and we love these because these are the knocks on our doors, and we're finally starting to open the door. Are we going to take the gift, or are we going to leave the gift behind? And so we want to take you there. Let's start, if you don't mind, Susan. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood, a little bit about who you are, what your family's like, and the phenomenon that took place for you, and what you're doing with that phenomenon, please.
For me, the journey started at the age of 4 when I had my first near-death experience. I also had one at 6 as well during life-saving surgeries. And of course, this is all before the term near-death experience was even termed. Because you're talking Iowa 1960s. Yeah, I'm an Iowa farm girl.
If you don't mind, do you recall those experiences? Do you have cognitive memory of what took place during those out-of-body or near-death experiences during those surgeries?
Yeah, I'm sure I've lost some details over the decades, a few more than I'd like to mention, as you can imagine. But the first thing I remember was just like all of a sudden being in the most beautiful, almost garden that I've ever seen. And one of the things that really stood out to me was the size of the trees. They were just massive. And I'm looking up at these, beings that are, and like my dad was 6'1". And these beings are like another 2 feet past him. So they're huge to me. And they couldn't even have reached the top of the trees. They're even the branches. These trees were so massive and so beautiful. And I just remember all these flowers and birds flying around, all these animals. It was just like ideally placed for me.
As a child, of course, unfortunately, I can imagine, children kind of get cast aside when they talk about their experiences, or you were dreaming, or whatever. And especially, like you said, at that period, which is the same age frame that Brad and I are in. We were children in the 60s as well. And none of this type of thing was really spoken about in my house, although I had older brothers and sisters who were experiencing the 60s, and they were doing whatever type of psychedelic drugs and talking about some of these phenomenons, but many people didn't think they were actually real. These are some kind of dream state. So for you as a child in your family, did you speak to your parents about what had happened to you?
I tried to. At a certain point, it was quit telling these stories. Quit, they actually even used the word lies at one point. So I just quit talking about it. I didn't quit seeing or quit experiencing. I just quit talking about it.
Okay, so I think we've established that you're weird as a child, right? No, we love you. We love you. But is that a truth? I mean, did that affect your childhood? Did you hide this completely from other children, or was it now something very...
I was talking about it with everybody, what I was experiencing. I just didn't talk about it at all. And I really don't remember talking about it with anybody but family. But then that's, where the way I grew up, it was a very small community. Literally on the road, it was our farm, it was my uncle's farm, it was my grandfather's farm. My great grandparents lived just a little bit farther down the road. So, that was a huge part of my interaction was family and that core family. And even the school I did go to, there was only 50 kids in my class.
And it's kind of funny because I think in many occurrences that these phenomenons of a form of contact, whether it be your own near-death experience or some type of external contact that's taking place, does kind of happen in some of the isolated areas, right? Away from some of the distraction, maybe. We have our own small farm here in southern Utah. We have our own ongoing phenomenons that occur for us on this property, of course. And I kind of love that because to me, that tells me that you were a very grounded child, okay? That you were not, living very grounded. That's what it tells me to me. So in this phenomenon of taking place for you, it holds a lot of valid concepts for us, of course. So let's move from that experience. From there, Susan, were the angels and the guides that you saw always with you?
Yeah, the angelics were always with me. For some reason, to be the ones referred to as spirit guides, I don't see them as clearly. But the angelics, they're constantly there. The only time I've ever seen them leave my side would be if they would sometimes go ahead of me to to plan things out or lay things out in the way that was in my best and highest good for whatever lessons I was learning. And occasionally some would stay home, for some reason watching over that space.
That's pretty cool. So when did you get the impression that you needed to do something with this? You needed to present this information, or what was the pull? Because you simply could have just lived the rest of your life with this super cool tribe, hanging around you that you really didn't need to speak to anybody about. When did you start getting that pull that you part of this experience was the beauty of delivering this gift for people?
That took place in 1997 for me. And because, up until that point, I had only seen my own. I didn't see everybody else's, but I know, all of a sudden, and I didn't notice it at first because I was a stay-at-home mom. And all of a sudden I went to the grocery store and I wasn't seeing just mine. I was seeing everybody's. And at first it was a little overwhelming. I literally just left the grocery cart in the middle of the grocery store and went home. And just kind of like, okay, what's going on here? And it was almost immediate that, telling me what I was seeing and what they wanted me to do with that. And to be honest, I spent the first probably 6 months arguing.
Understand that.
I had 2 teenage boys, I had 2 toddlers, and one other minor detail, I didn't know how to draw at that point. I had no idea how to, put this onto paper or canvas or, whatever medium I ended up, which I ended up being paper and color pencil, but I had no idea how to do it. So that was a process as well.
And so, from my own experience, I kind of know how this works because they can be very persistent, right?
Hang on. Whoa. Just a second. Because I have to at least open up this discussion as far as she's in the grocery store. She starts seeing everyone else's angelic guides. That's what I'm just going to term them as. And because the reason I'm pointing this out is because there are those on the planet that believe that only a select few have this gift, that there's no way that they've got angels or beings of an ethereal state that help them and surround them, and that is not correct.
Now everybody has minimum 3. The more work you have to do spiritually, more lessons you have to learn, the more you have with you. If you are here at, like in the past, you guys as well, to be of assistance to others on their journey, then there's even more. Yeah. Yeah, and those are just your personal ones. We can also have what are called referred to as the archangels, that whole group. They can come in and assist from time to time as they're needed.
So, I mean, this is so much fun because I want to tell the audience, I was telling Susan before we started, we've had this experience of somebody watching us channel Julius on stage and presenting me with a drawing of Julius around me. It's the only time I've ever had that done in the 12 years that we've been doing this. And it was such a point of validation for me. But more than that, it was another level of getting to know them. Another level, another essence of who they are. The few people that I've shown that drawing to are astounded by it, as well. So, Susan, how did you start doing what you're doing? Are you just randomly walking up to people and saying, here, let me just draw these people for you, and people are like, get away from me, you weird woman. Like, how does this start?
People come to me at this point, and I actually started out, I had already was a member of the spiritual community here in the Kansas City area at the time, attending events, and I have become friends with a lady who owned one of the largest New Age store here in Kansas City, called Aquarius. I was probably one of the first customers that walked into her store. And I actually started out then, 2-3 times a year, I'd go on a Saturday and do angel portraits at her shop. And then eventually, as the kids got a little bit older and things, I started occasionally doing some of this metaphysical fairs. And I still do a few of those, and there's a few shops that I go to as well to this day. And I've learned over the years as well to do the portraits from photographs. So as long as I can see the eyes of the person in the photograph, so I even at this point have people who purchase them on my website, and any messages that I put on the back of the drawing, and just stick it in the mail.
Okay. What?
Oh, hold on just a minute.
I love this subject.
So, how's your family reacting at this point? Come on, man, we gotta get into this.
It's a subject we really just don't broach a lot. My mom and I at this point, we just talk about my artwork a little bit. We don't talk about the angels. Even my 4 children and I, it's not something we talk about a lot.
Yeah. Well, we kind of yeah, we can relate to that. Although things are opening up more and more subject matter with my children
Well,
now.
you learn to just go with your gift. You know, if you don't if you don't pursue your gift, you know, you start feeling just a little bit guilty inside, and that's really not the right word, because you know that you're driven to do it. You know, so you feel empty inside that you're not doing it. So you figure out some way to do it. I'm sure you've.
My youngest, my daughter, her and I have started talking the last few years about it a little bit. And she's probably, of my 4 children, she's the one that pays the most attention to what mom does.
Well, that's because she has her own
I was
gifts,
going to
right?
say, because
Yeah.
I was sensing
Yeah.
that there's something else going on there,
Yeah.
and she's got a gift of her own that
course.
is going to come out, and you're gonna and you're gonna help her with that gift. So just
Yeah. She's not ready yet. Right now, she's she's a pastry chef.
I know there's people who talk to people's angels. I know, like yourself, that people can see and draw them. Do you talk to their angels as well, or is it mostly just a presentation of what you can see around them to let them know that they're there?
There is some messages. They show me things in like snapshots. And sometimes it might be, a book cover. Sometimes it might be a scene that I'm trying to interpret. And I do occasionally get impressions of like, one sentence phrases here and there. Yeah. So they're very subtle in how they give messages. So it's learning how to listen, which can take time.
You get to be, we get to be little archaeologists a little bit, right? Trying to discover things. I imagine, I know for my own self, but I'm going to, want this to be all about you and the audience. Do they want us to know that they're there? Do they like people talking to them? Even if, let's say somebody, you're telling me I have angels around me, I can't see them. I'm hoping that they're there.
Yeah. What good is that going to do me?
If I start talking to them, maybe they'll make themselves a little more known. I mean, what would you say, Susan, for people?
Actually, what they ask is, are they going to give me the lottery numbers?
Oh, yeah, everybody wants.
I'd be sitting on a beach doing this with you if that was the case. But they want us to ask for their help. They particularly like it when we ask. They're here to assist in whatever way they can. There are certain things that we agreed to before we took physical form, before we entered these gloves, of lessons that we wanted to learn. So they put us in those situations first to learn those lessons. That's their main purpose, but they will help in any other way that they possibly can. There's times I've asked for things as simple as, on a cold or, rainy day, help me find a good parking spot, especially if I was carrying in artwork or my crystal bowls or whatever into different venues. And there's other times I've asked for what we as humans think of things that are bigger and harder, though to them, they're really not. If you're asking for something on a specific date or deadline, please give the entire date. They don't understand time as well, like we do, because they've not as a general rule, angels have not taken physical form before, so they don't understand physical time.
Thank you so much for validating that.
I was getting ready to pull that one out of you.
Julia says the same thing. They haven't been it's a likelihood that you have been an angel and just have decided to come into physical form.
You'd be surprised, in conversation with all the traveling that we do and all the events that we go to, how many people just don't really understand that all the beings that are communicating with everybody that are out there, that the majority of them have never been human or physical.
A good portion of them. Some of them, of course, have. And
The spirit guides, they, as a general rule, have had a physical experience, not always on Earth, but so they understand, this a little bit, more than the angelics do.
Julius are the ascended master spirit guides. They have been human. They know about all the, we call it working themselves through the muck.
Yeah, the group that
of the human experience. Yeah.
That's a great phrase. I like that.
What is the hardest part about what you do?
Oh, gee. That's a good question. The hardest part? I'd like to share it more. To me, that's the hardest part. It's as far as setting down and drawing the portrait and interacting with people in that way, that is pure joy for me. It's finding the ways to share it with more people. That's the hardest part.
Well, hopefully we are going to help resolve or ease that difficulty for you by getting you out more and more.
Actually, we're kind of hoping that we get this little email back from you in about 6-8 months, and you're saying
Stop.
Tell them to stop. Tell them to stop.
Yeah, back it off just a little bit. So thank you for saying earlier that you are able to do this virtually for people. You don't have to be sitting directly in front of them, because that's important. So we're going to get to all of your contact information so everybody can get in contact with you and receive your beautiful services from you. But I just want to continue this conversation.
Okay, fire away. Just keep firing away.
Let's talk, Susan, a little bit about what you see. What do you see, and what don't you see in the presentations? Are they always large? Are they small? What colors? What do they look like?
That's one that I wanted to add, was the colorations, because you've got this beautiful portrait above your head in the film, in the camera, and it's got all these colors in it, and I'm being drawn to ask you the question, when you see colors, is there a distinct representation that you're aware of?
Yes, and I know that, like, when I sit down with somebody, either a person or a picture, the first thing I'll see is just the body shape and that color. And actually, even before that, they show me what color paper to use. Because ahead of time, I will do a watercolor wash on the watercolor paper that I draw the angels on. So it'll show me what color paper to use, then what color the body is. And I'm nearly complete with that before they start showing me what we think of as wings. That's not really what they are, because a being made of light doesn't need wings. And they'll show me the pattern of the wings, and that's really what's individual to each one. The wings, or that pattern is like a fingerprint. All the years of doing this, I've never seen two be exactly alike. I have seen some similarities, yes, but not exactly alike. And then something that's just been added, I've been about 1.5 years ago, I started seeing, it's been told to me that it's like a light language. But I've been seeing a script that usually starts at the throat and goes down the center of the body. And I've been told that's a message from the angels to the higher self, that we don't need to consciously understand what that means. And then your question about the colors, with each portrait, I give a little sheet of paper that is, gives you a little bit of an idea of what the energetics behind each of the colors. And I'm going to be honest, I personally and intentionally do not remember what that sheet of paper says, because I don't want to project anything onto anybody.
Well, Julius describes that there are levels of consciousness, and that there are colorations to represent the levels of consciousness, and then there's energy frequency bandwidths that emit from light, And in those kind of combinations, you can decipher a little bit the level of consciousness of somebody, or what people are seeing, commonly known as an auric field.
The reason I ask that is because human beings are always wanting a representation of something so they can refer to it in their own life, because they just don't know how, they haven't found out how powerful they are. So they need this recognition, and that's why I was asking that question, because I believe that all of these gifts, that all these people that we interview, this one's cool, man. All these gifts are intended to help us as humans get through this experience and realize that we're not alone, and that there are other things that are going on outside of this planet.
Do they sound like something around you, Susan? Do they sound like people when you tune in and you're looking at people and you're like, okay, yeah, I can see all these people? Are they, through sound vibration, are they connecting with you or trying to connect with the people around?
I do hear sound, but it's much more tonal or musical, was the way I would say it. And it's when I hear them speak specifically to each other, it is almost pure music. And if the names, to listen, if you wanted to hear their real names, it would take about 15 to 20 minutes. And it is very tonal. It's very much almost like chanting. And the names that they give me through this process, which is the very last piece I always get, because we need something shorter than 15 to 20 minutes. They spell for me a piece of that. And, then the pronunciation is, and it's something I am never to pronounce the angel's name for them. It is something that they are supposed to do on their own. Is there's something that takes place with that pronunciation, when they pronounce it. I almost sometimes refer to it as magic, because that's the closest human term I can find with that. But and their names are not like Bob and Ruth and Joe. They're very, so the pronunciation is what feels right to you, to the person, and there's no right or wrong. It's just what feels right. And if they want, because it's already an abbreviation, if they want to abbreviate it further, that's okay too.
I ping back to movies. In the movie Avatar, there's a connection, that energetic connection that takes place through that recognition. That's kind of what I pull up once the human is accepting in some form the connection of that energy, with them, and that energy is such high light vibration. They're like, however you want to interpret us is perfectly fine. We're not going to get into an argument. We don't live in an altered ego state where you have to be exactly correct about, They
don't live in lack.
No. Yeah.
No, they do not. And I know, seeing that, all the time, I had to kind of learn to turn the volume down, so to speak. And so now in my day-to-day life of going to the grocery store, for example, I just see them in spheres of all different sizes. And it's just like inside those spheres is just color that's constantly moving. And it's just when I sit down with someone, it's almost like they choose which one I'm supposed to draw, and then they start taking shape.
Yeah.
So do you find
we gotta have this done, don't we? Just I'm like, get on our website.
But do you find
afterwards.
when you go out in public that there are people that are just waiting for you to show up in certain areas so you can draw them so they can get all this information?
Sometimes, yes.
I have question about, is the pattern that you see stronger with children than with adults? In my mind's eye, I would almost perceive that to be the open heart and mind of a child that would allow that presence to be stronger or more visible than the denied state or ignorant state of an adult. Do you see any change in that?
And it's almost, the process is almost takes place faster. It's just a little smoother, is, is the way I would say that.
I know that, children, of course, have, their pretend friends, all that stuff. Brad, of course, had this essence of what we perceive to be joyous around him as a child. Some of them presented themselves as warriors in the doorway for him, when he was a child. And then, of course, that is encouraged to be wiped away, right? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Like you said, Susan, your parents telling you, that's just imagination. For our own grandchildren especially, not just my children, but grandchildren, oh my hell. I mean, they're just, when they're young, they're talking to them in the room. They're over in the corner talking, and if you disrupt them, they tell you to go away. They're talking to somebody, and that is so phenomenal, I think, for you to even to be able to paint that for a child and say, here are your imaginary friends. Don't let go of that. They're there. They're there with you. Do you think do they stay consistently with us through our lives?
Yes. Your angels do not leave you throughout this lifetime. Your main guardian angel, and those always show themselves to me as having some sort of like breastplate. Those have been with you for at least from what they have told me, not just this lifetime, but all of your lifetimes in physical form. Where some of your others, they're not going to leave you, during your life in physical form in any way or this lifetime. But those may have been with you multiple lifetimes as well, but they may be with you only one lifetime, because they learn just as much from us as we learn from them.
I love that the movie City of Angels, I think, depicts this more consistently, what you're supporting. Of course, it's very Hollywood with Nicolas Cage, and they live in a library and things like that. But what they present in that movie.
Which movie you're talking about?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would City of Angels with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan.
Yeah, it's actually.
I think it supports quite a lot of what you speak.
It's pretty profound, actually, if you pay attention to everything they talk about during that movie.
Yeah. My own self, I could imagine if I had this gift, which I do not have this time around, I have different things, to walk in like a children's hospital, and see the activity in there, of the angels, or probably hospitals in general, but maybe no more or less than anything else, but to maybe be able to, show that child here's your angels, they're around you, there's just so much opportunity here in the support to humans of how eternal they are. Not just that they have a support group, but your ability to tangibly say, this is the eternal, part of the eternal process for you. What is your favorite thing about all of that? Is there anything particular that's your favorite thing in being able to present message-wise to people?
Just the connection. To help them understand that we have this connection with these other beings, and that we're really all so connected with each other. The biggest thing, illusion about where we really live, the way we live, is the separation. That's the bit, to me, that's the only true lie.
Limited truth, extremely limited truth.
Yeah.
Susan, let's talk a little bit how people get a hold of you. Let's talk about your websites, how people get a hold of you. Let's emphasize how your services are done and things like that. So how do people find you?
I do have a website. To make it simple, it is just SusanWalterArt.com. And that is how I can be found on Facebook, Instagram, And I even have some stuff on Pinterest as well. So those are the main ways to get a hold of me. I do have an insiders group on Facebook, um, as well, and that's where, yeah, because as you can probably see from behind me, the angel portraits are not the only artwork that I create now. It's kind of continued to evolve and blossom into other things as well. Um, so the other paintings and things like that are also, featured on that. Even some mandalas that I've created based on the frequencies actually the angels use to speak to each other is what we call the Sapphagio frequencies, and I've created mandalas based on those. So yeah, and that's a whole nother topic.
You. And so to support, people will contact you. Do you then do like a Zoom meeting with them like this? So you're starting to maybe see some of this imaging around us. Do you do it that way? How do people get you to do
At this point, I make it as simple as possible. They just email me a photograph. It can be just a selfie that they have taken that day with their phone. The more recent the photograph, the better. It is a little bit easier for me if they are the only person in the photograph, but I have, done it from group photos as well. It's just a little easier for me. But yeah, and then I usually will then message them back when it's complete and on its way in the mail to them.
request different sizes from you?
No, I typically do 9 by 12 drawings. They, as you probably know, angels like doing things in threes. So they even wanted paper where the dimensions were divisible by 3. But I used to do them larger, and I just you really don't get any more out of it. At that point, there is no more information, or insights, to the angel by me doing it larger. So I just do the 9 by 12s at this point.
I don't know, you want this big thing on your wall. It's super cool. You want somebody to come in your
Then
house,
go
you're like,
take
what
it-
is that? You're
then
like,
go
that's
take
my
it down to the
crew.
print studio and
I
have
love
them
it.
enlarge it and put it on one of those canvases and stick it behind
The
you.
angels are up there going, get your ego out of it, would you? Like, just dial it down just a little bit.
One lady, she keeps talking about having it actually one of her angels tattooed on her back.
Yeah. Wow, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother thing. Yeah, okay. My daughter's boyfriend is a tattoo artist. I have to talk to him about that. But Susan, it is with extreme honor and gratitude from us that you have come onto this show. And your ability and bravery to deliver this to everybody, because you don't have to. I mean, so many people live in the spiritual closet for fear of exposure and judgment, of course, from everybody else. So thank you for being brave enough to do it. And it's just joyous to have you in the energy and in the tribe of
Yeah.
what we do.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thank you so much.
For welcoming me into the tribe.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back. We'll talk about those sound frequencies and the communications of angels, because I think that people hear them. Sometimes I think, there's this ringing in my ear, or there's these weird sounds, and I'm like, yep, that's probably some of the communication that's
Well,
coming through. Do
that's
you
why
support that's a possibility?
Music is so popular.
Yeah.
I think it is, and the frequencies that we listen to are music, and there are ones that can be detrimental, and there's frequencies that can be very, very healing. And we need to focus on those healing frequencies.
Well, we want to thank all of our viewers, of course, as well. We hope you have enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. We want to encourage you to go to SusanWaltersArt.com and get connected with her. Oh, I mean, we all have to have this, right? Now we've just got to have these pictures. Gotta have my validation for the day and the connection. If we can leave the program, Susan, with maybe an inspirational quote from you, what is it that you would say to everybody?
Take the time to take care of yourself. Self-love is one of the most important things we can do right now for ourselves. And that is because that's a way of recharging your personal battery. We have then so much to share with each other if we take care of ourselves first.
For that. And thank all of you for being with us on Extraordinary Experiences, where our intention is to connect you with other extraordinary beings, to inspire all of you to unleash your superpowers, to know that you are an eternal being, an empowered being, a being from love and light. And we, of course, are sending you nothing but blessings your way, and gratitude for being with us. We'll see you again next time.